The Fan.
Courtney Cronin, who covers the Chicago Bears for ESPN and ESPN.com, joins the Combine coverage from Indianapolis. We thank Kwesi Adolfo for joining us. And around the corner, Arizona Cardinals offensive coordinator Drew Petzing, along with Green Bay Packers radio analyst Larry McCarren. What's going on there, Double C?
Not much. I hope my voice is okay. Like, these late nights at the Combine just take a toll.
Well, yeah, but the late night last night was different. It was the Women of the Combine event.
And you showed up. I appreciate you coming out for that.
Yeah, see, you didn't let me. It's okay, man. And thank you very much for inviting and having me and everything. But it's a Women of the Combine event, so I was going to do a fairness in event act that it was open to men and agents, and, you opened it up.
Literally anybody who wants to come.
Okay.
If you want to be an ally, you just can't be a misogynist.
Right.
Like, that's the deciding line between who can come if you're not a female.
So I get there, all right, and 6:30, something like that, and there are probably 40 people there, 38 women, and then this one guy named Cody Alexander, who I met last night. So I see this one guy leaning up against a pillar at Tavern South or whatever it's called, and I'm checking in, and I'm like, my man, I don't know you and you don't know me, but we're about ready to know each other real well a minute from now. We're going to hang out, okay? So, but then Kevin Warren eventually showed up. Who else?
George McCaskey was there.
Oh,
we were over 150 last night, which is one of our best turnouts we've had. It's something that we started 2019. Maybe there were 25, 30 people there total, and we've grown it every year. It's truly like the most rewarding feeling to see how much this thing has grown, and just where we have a space now where people come every single year. People have gotten jobs out of it. Like, the networking element is so important in Indianapolis. But when I started this, I was on the Vikings beat, and I didn't know how to navigate the Combine when I first came in 2018, and it gave me the idea, let's have a place for women. We travel in packs here because, we're outnumbered, and to have somebody you can buddy up with, have somebody who can teach you how to talk to agents, how to network, how to, cultivate sources. It's grown from there, and now it's, I look forward to it every year, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing where it grows from here.
Well, it's if this is too personal or too far, down the business line, I apologize, but there was an open bar.
There was.
So I'm looking at, I had to go back to the check-in table and be like, well, okay, what's the charitable, who Kevin Warren, president of the Chicago Bears, did he pay for the open bar? Holy cow.
No, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Darcy Glazer Kaslowitz, is an incredible champion of our cause. She's been with us on this since the COVID. So 2020, remember that was the last Combine we had before the world shut down?
Yeah.
And then we had a virtual event the next year. She spoke at it, and she has been funding our event for the last five times. And it's incredible.
Good for you.
So grateful for her support in this, and ESPNW got involved this year. They're raffling off registration to one of their summits. We can't do it alone, but to watch the growth, to watch the people who have made it a priority.
Yeah.
And to see, owners in the NFL put their money where their mouth is, more or less, in being a champion for women in this industry and people like myself, that really means a lot.
Amen. Last thing on this. So I walk in and I see that Cody Alexander cat who I just followed on Twitter. And so it's he's the only other guy. And I'm we're friends now until, there are more people here. Well, then I see Tatum Everett. Well, she's in there. And so Tatum graciously, just kind of welcomed me in because it was just different. I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
And then I met the lady who covers the New Orleans Saints for ESPN named Catherine Terrell. And after we went down the road with a couple of Sean Payton anti-Vike related stories that will be off the radio, this lady, this woman knows as much about, like, I've worked in horse racing and called horse races for 30 years.
Yeah.
And that's like her passion away from what she does. So, I mean, I just don't run into people frequently who are like correcting me on who rode Derby winners in the mid-'70s and the Triple Crown.
It's the Bayou version of Paul Allen.
He was juiced when he came away from that. When you were on your way out and you told me, like, I just cornered Catherine for 35 minutes and we had this in-depth conversation about
why you
got to
say cornered?
You said the cornered. You're like, I monopolized her time.
Yeah, I know, and I apologize. She was like, I'm like, sorry.
No,
to
but
take
she enjoyed it, and that's
30 minutes of your time.
That's the benefit of it, like people getting to meet people for the first time, and fostering relationships and all that. Now, you had us. Who was the guy?
The announcer?
At Arlington.
So here's what happened. Courtney had shown me a picture from days gone by with her and Catherine Terrell at Ascot.
Yeah, Royal Ascot in 2019.
Royal Ascot 2019. I mean, it's the Queen's Play. It's just a massive, massive horse racing day. It's, with worldly appeal. Beautiful dresses, hats. The guys all wear tuxedos, top hats, all that. So she sent me a picture of her and Catherine Terrell at Ascot. All right, now we fast forward. They're at Arlington Park in Arlington Heights, and you're familiar with that, Pete. Well, I know the announcer, John Dooley, quite well. So I texted him, and I said, one of my dear friends, Courtney Cronin, and her friend, Catherine Terrell, are there. So unbeknownst to them, the horses are coming to the gate for a race, and they hear, did he say both names?
The race was named after us.
Yeah.
We're sitting in our seats.
Yeah.
We had no clue. We're like, wait a second.
Yeah. It's kind of quiet, and you hear Dooley say, they're approaching the starting gate for the Courtney Cronin Catherine Terrell Classic.
Well, now you're good friends with Kevin Warren, and they own
Arlington Park.
Wow. So there you go.
Full circle moment, unless they decide they want to stay in the city.
Will it be the Courtney Cronin Stadium?
Yeah, CC Downs.
I mean,
good racetrack there.
But here's the thing: is you're like, oh, you bought Arlington? Well, yeah, they name races there, right?
I don't know what's more important. I think the latter. I don't know if he'll agree with me on that. Maybe. I mean, who knows if they're going to build a stadium there? It's like it's been delayed.
Yeah.
There's the idea that they might stay in the city.
Yeah.
I could see them doing that.
Well, I mean, if Kevin's going to be the next commissioner of the National Football League, you better get this thing done. Stack that resume,
The thing is, with Kevin, whatever it is, it's going to get done.
Yeah, and it's going to be grandiose. It's going to be a big picture thing. And I think we're just waiting now. Like, it's going to be the hurry up and wait game to see who blinks first between the suburbs and the Chicago
I know with Kevin,
Bears.
it's more like with Minnesota, it's the multi-use part of it. And I think that's the part of it that he's trying to get across to the mayor of Chicago and everybody is saying, hey, this is not just for 10 football games a year, right? This is for
concerts,
everybody in everything.
Final Fours, Super Bowls, and like the ability to have like the multi-use, like also that part of the property of like maybe like residential, commercial. Who knows? Maybe they'll. I think modeling it after the Star in Dallas is probably like the true appeal if it was Arlington Heights, but you can do elements of that in Chicago.
Now,
too.
I'd never been to Arlington Park, Arlington International, as it was known at the end. Gabe's from North Carolina. I'm from D.C. So you're Chicagoans, both of you.
Yep.
Arlington Heights, is that nice real estate there? Is that a really nice town or what?
Yeah, and let me address it this way. If you talk to anybody that the Bears fans, the ones that go, once they get to their seat, they love it.
Yeah,
it's the smallest stadium now, I believe, in the NFL. Only 60,000 seats.
65 maybe.
But people will sell they won't go if they don't have a parking pass.
Wow.
And if you get a parking garage pass, it could still be Uber distance away from the stadium.
Right.
So it's just not easy to get there. Right, if you're going to a game, you're going to something during the week, you're leaving at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning to get there. It's just not easy to get downtown and to get out.
I see.
So
it's one
Arlington,
way in, one way out.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
So is it like Eden Prairie-esque? Is it
more like off of 290? It's a lot of highways right there.
I see.
It's like East Rutherford, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Like,
Raleigh, North Carolina.
I wouldn't probably go that far.
Okay.
It's probably one of the greatest states in America, but that's neither here nor there.
Now
I think Chicago is, in my opinion. It's just beautiful.
The Bears personify juicy with this offseason. I mean, your beat is the juiciest of all juicy. So I'm going through your Twitter, and I see your tweets when you put them out, generally speaking, but I had forgotten. Is Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback, is him not wanting to play for the Bears, is that a thing?
So I don't know how it got started, but Colin Cowherd had been perpetuating this for a while that, like, he doesn't want to go to Chicago, like, blah, 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 he doesn't want to go. And then so Waddle and Sylvie had Cowherd on the next day, and he kind of walked it back about, well, that's, like, what the general idea is. Like, he definitely had some couching to do amongst it.
Yeah.
So then today, Pete Thamel put out an article about Caleb, and it's basically scooping us on what we're going to do here on Friday when we talk to him.
Okay.
But he squashed the notion that he doesn't want to go to Chicago. And I don't know. He could just be saying what he's coached to say.
Yeah.
And,
really?
You know, doing all the right things.
See, I didn't read the full quote tweet. I saw your quote tweet. But
he said he had no agenda, which I think that's...
Well, he said the Bears are in control.
Yes, like, and that's ultimately what it is. Because people will always say, well, what about Eli Manning and the situation that he found himself in, being drafted by a team he didn't want to play with? That is such an outlier. That's such an anomaly. I don't think that'll ever... like.
Right.
If your last name's Manning, like, I get it. Like, that's probably the one time that something like that could happen.
Yeah.
But I don't see it. The Bears, if they are convicted, they're going to meet with Caleb today. If they are convicted that he is the guy, then you go ahead and trade Justin. You do something right by him in the next couple of days, or at least before the start of free agency, and you move forward. And after that happens, and I'm convinced that a trade for Fields is soon. It's interesting. DraftKings just took down the odds for for a Fields trade. I don't know why they do that today. I don't know what kind of smoke I'm reading.
They generally in that world, it's generally taken off the board when they're getting too much money one side.
Okay.
Like Fields will be traded minus whatever, and then they'll come back with different odds to try to offset it and get it to balance.
Interesting. It's just like the comments that were made yesterday. This is the first time that Ryan Poles has actually entertain the idea that Fields will not be on the roster, and talking about when the timeline before the start of free agency, and it just makes the Bears will be, I don't want to say boring, but if they trade Justin Fields in the next couple of days, then it's a foregone conclusion of taking Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And then there's no drama around it.
No, you got the 9 and 78 under the cap. Seriously.
Can the Bears not draft him? I mean, after the Trubisky bit,
yeah.
With that team has not had a quarterback in you'd almost say ever.
Yeah.
Right.
Cutler, maybe.
Not one that they've been able to draft and develop.
So that's kind of like the way when you step back and you look at they if you want to say fleeced Carolina, they got this put together, did a brilliant job getting all this together, got a great wide receiver.
Yeah.
And you've got the pick of the litter when you have a draft that has, let's face it, maybe 6 first-round quarterbacks. How can they pass on any of them? Because if any one of those guys, it's not just Trubisky versus whomever. It's 6 different guys that they passed on, and if any one of these guys pay off, you're going to hear it again.
Yeah, well, look, they just passed on the Offensive Rookie of the Year. They gave up the opportunity to draft Stroud last year, and Poles said yesterday, they're not going to make this decision based on the fear of what might happen, what might not happen. And if you're reading between the lines there, it's, well, what if Justin Fields, you trade him to Atlanta and he goes and succeeds and wins a Super Bowl? You can't not pull off a trade.
Yeah.
Just in the off chance that happens, whatever the percentage is, you've got to do what's best for this franchise. In long term, they're the first team in the common draft era, so since 1967 to have the number 1 pick in back-to-back years, 1 year after trading it. That never happens.
That's crazy.
It's such a unique situation. If they only had number 9, we're not talking about them trading Justin Fields. We're talking about them giving him another year, picking up the 5th-year option, continuing to build around him. They're not. It's such a rare. It's not that. I always try to put it like this: it's not that Justin did anything so egregious that was so wrong, so bad. He's a top 20 quarterback at the moment, maybe on a good day. There's a lot of mid in his game, and I think that
there's people see a lot of potential.
Exactly, but you can't hedge your careers on potential.
Who is the offensive coordinator?
Shane Waldron.
And what do you think of him? Only because you have a defensive-minded head coach, right? And so if you draft a quarterback number 1, he can help, but he's not going to be the guy that, unlike Minnesota, where if we draft, our head coach was an NFL quarterback, right? We're slated to have a young quarterback. This is a perfect place for a young quarterback to succeed. Eberflus, defensive-minded guy. I think it's going to come down to the offensive coordinator, and can he develop, and has he developed any young talent at quarterback?
I mean, the draw is that he's worked with so many different quarterbacks, whether it was Jared Goff when he was with the Rams, I never know the line of delineation about who gets the credit for Geno Smith and the resurgence in his career, whether it was Dave Canales or Shane Waldron, but they all worked together.
Yeah, right.
And Geno had an incredible year in 2022, and then last season, the ability this team had to have different quarterbacks come in and out. And he also worked with Russ. I mean, there was a change in Seattle's philosophy about what they wanted to do at the position, but the amount of quarterbacks he's worked with gave the Bears the best option, that they were bringing somebody in from a West Coast scheme, the McVay Shanahan system, more or less, and that they didn't have to have the decision on Fields or on Caleb right then and there. So it could be either of them, and they feel that this system will work either way. It is interesting on the Eberflus note. That's why a lot of people were wondering, okay, why are they going to hang on to this coach?
Well, as Kevin Warren said in an interview with Jared Payton, he's like, this is his third year. This is his big year.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the same path that he followed when he was with the St. Louis Rams. So, year 3 was the year that everything took off. So is Matt Eberflus going to be his Dick Vermeil? Maybe. Probably way too early to tell on that. But if it all goes according to plan, this year 3 should be pretty big.
That's Courtney Cronin with ESPN and ESPN.com. Covers the Chicago Bears in second-to-none fashion. At Courtney R. Cronin via Twitter, or X as the kids call it. And we are in Indianapolis at the Combine.
CC, in what world does Justin Fields stay the quarterback up for the Chicago Bears? Is there no possibility that he's wearing blue and orange next year?
I have a hard time seeing it, because how can you, after the comments that were made yesterday, and I think they were all fair, you can't trot that guy out as your franchise guy after entertaining the idea that if you trade him, it might be before free agency, you want to do right by him, you don't want him to live in the gray. I can't see it. And the way that Eberflus talked about quarterbacks yesterday, what is the most important aspect of it? Situational awareness, fourth quarter, third downs, a lot, 2 minutes, 2-minute drill, all the stuff that Fields struggled with, that they kept saying, we need to see improvement there. That's going to solidify our decision if we can see Justin improve significantly there. He didn't improve significantly there. The numbers are still bottom third of the NFL in every major passing category. And I think that was a telling answer from the head coach, who ultimately will also have a say in this too. And if it didn't describe Justin Fields the way that they were talking about him yesterday.
Courtney, so with a Justin Fields trade potentially quickly and or on the horizon, that I think greatly impacts what's next for Kirk Cousins. So it's, Cousins, as we had O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah yesterday, and they both were, pretty straightforward in that, yes, we want him back, we want to sign him, but the whole thing has to work out. So say Justin gets traded to Atlanta. Well, then that's one fewer team for Kirk, which absolutely plays into here, right?
Absolutely. I feel like he's got the Vikings between a rock and a hard place. I think he's going to resign.
He's been good at that all of his career.
It's great work by his agent too, but
yeah.
I have a hard time believing it'll be anybody else other than Kirk for a number of reasons.
Well, what about this before you go on? Josh McCown's the new quarterbacks coach.
And you know who his agent is, right?
Who?
Mike McCartney.
Oh, wow.
That's Kirk's agent.
Jeez.
That was Mike's first client.
All right, well, we'll take Josh, and we'll go back to when he coached high school football in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he coached Drake May. I mean, that's really, really reaching here, but nevertheless, you do have a connection there.
There's a connection, but this team, that's a massive jump. You think the Wolves are going to give the sign-off to go up from 11? What is it, 13 or 11?
I mean, it's 11, or maybe 3. You follow the NFL closely, and you saw the Vikings twice last year. I'm not exactly sure you completely understand or feel the complexity of what that 4-quarterback human clipping penalty was last year. I mean, like Dobbs when they win in Atlanta, all right, and his running's unbelievable. I mean, people are like, wow, if he can throw. I mean, you're going to get a quarterback who can run like the wind, and they're all chasing after the wind with this guy for 3 years, $21-25 million. That'd be unbelievable. Yeah. Then they asked him to throw, and then we moved,
I saw it.
And then we moved on to Mullins.
I saw it. I was there for that game in November.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they've got to get this is their one chance. If you're thinking about it long term, can they move on from Cousins? Yeah. Can they get out from under any more contracts that they get linked to with him? And can they start over? Can they finally hit reset at that position? But then the other layer, who does Justin Jefferson want throwing him the ball?
Right.
Like, you got to keep your number one player on the team happy. What if it's a rookie quarterback that they don't gel with right away? Justin wants
Ask
to sign
DJ
the
Moore,
now.
who came out and absolutely was like, I love Justin. And, I mean, he did the same thing with JJ for Kirk.
I think DJ is a great teammate. I think that you can read those. I don't think he's not going to be thrilled if Caleb Williams is the quarterback of the Bears. I think he was speaking about his guy and had Justin's back. And I didn't read.
And you don't think JJ's doing the same thing?
Has he been talking? Has he said anything? I feel like he's been real quiet this offseason.
Well, he
said he likes Kirk.
In Ghana for a while.
He wasn't in his top 5 list, though, last August. Remember
that?
That's
a good point.
And then before that, he's not as swaggy as Joe Burrow.
I mean,
he has a grill now, though.
He just reposted Kirk Cousins' Instagram
Kirk got
video.
a grill.
That's temporary grill terrorism. It has to be.
I mean, he actually got someone that's
marketing.
actually molded to his teeth.
That's marketing.
Yeah. We got time for a couple more, Gabe.
In what world, I wouldn't even say this, but when you look at both teams, the Bears and the Vikings, let's say they do decide to go young quarterback. Infrastructurally, which team has a better infrastructure to build a young quarterback around? To build a team around a young quarterback?
If it's not the Bears? Or
No, the Bears and Vikings. Like if they both decide to go rookie quarterback early in the draft.
Well, I mean, the Vikings' offensive line is far and away a better situation to bring a rookie quarterback into the fold. Like, the idea that with Caleb Williams is that you don't need protection that's that great because he is so good off script. He's got all the arm angles. He can do all of the things. Yeah. But I still... the Bears are in a much better spot than they were a year ago. So if you're drafting a rookie quarterback with the best pick in the draft, you're not bringing him into a bad team. You're bringing him into a team that had one of the best defenses in the NFL after the halfway point of the season. Once they acquired Montez Sweat, you've got a thoroughbred in DJ Moore. You've got the what did you say, $78 million? Is that what it's up to now?
78 and change.
In cap space, that's a receiver.
More than enough money.
Maybe Daniil Hunter.
Oh,
I'm not trying to I had to say it
that was the last question.
That was going to be my...
Right, because I've been for 2 weeks. If the Bears, and I'm not trying to run him out of town, I love him, but if the Bears or the Lions, with the money they have, do not make a run at this guy, pull him from a rival, and bookend him either with Aiden Hutchinson or Montez Sweat. Yeah. Now, I think if he leaves, he's going to go to Jacksonville. That's just my personal...
What's the feel on Jacksonville?
No state income tax in Florida. Excuse me, I'm sorry. No, you got a good quarterback and Travis Etienne, and you got Josh Allen and Trayvon
Walker.
Thank you, Walker. Yeah, so warm weather, but yeah, they got a lot of salary cap money, and I bet you they call about Daniil.
It's a good defensive line group in free agency. You can upgrade the 3-technique spot. You can. I mean, what they do in free agency will truly dictate what they do at number 9 if they move back, because the options here, and we saw what happened when you added an instant impact player like Montez Sweat, the back end of the defense, they started, all the takeaways started coming through.
So Montez was awesome, right? Every game.
Yeah. He
was in with Washington.
Well, I think the way that Washington makes sense to me, and you would get this having been there, it's like having 4 20-point scorers on a basketball team and no chemistry. And there's all that talent up front, and for whatever reason, it just didn't manifest into anything other than a middle of the road team. With
I
a lot of
would agree with that.
And the recognition, the Bears gave him, saying, "We're trading for you, going to give you a new contract. You're our guy."
Right away, within 6 days.
He responded to that very well.
He did.
He's an elite pass rusher. Elite, in my opinion.
You have any TV today or anything? Any around the horn hits from the combine? Waddle and Sylvie on radio? What you doing?
They're coming down tomorrow. So they're going to be here, I think, throughout Thursday, Friday, which is great. You won't get to see them.
Yeah, I leave later today, and I love Waddle and Sylvie.
They're wonderful. So a lot of TV, a lot of radio, just kind of making the rounds and all of that. But always glad to be on with you guys.
My superstar friend, it's awesome seeing you. Thanks for making time. Thanks for the event last night. Yeah. And man, that was fantastic. That's Courtney Cronin, ESPN, ESPN.com. When we return, we hear from Arizona Cardinals offensive coordinator Drew Petzing, a former offensive coach with the Minnesota Vikings, and we head into the second half of the presentation on
KFAN, The Fan.
second half of the Combine coverage on FM 100.3 KFAN, and welcome back. I'm Paul Allen. We thank the incomparable Courtney Cronin for joining 9 to noon from Indianapolis. Spectacular as usual. And coming up a little later, we have Larry McCarren, the analyst for the Green Bay Packers radio network, Ryan Grigson, the senior vice president of player personnel for the Minnesota Vikings, about 30 minutes from now. And the final segment, or right around there, Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. He's here in Indianapolis with us, and PFT Radio about an hour from now. Meanwhile, Drew Petzing coached 6 years with the Minnesota Vikings. Offensively speaking, ended up as wide receivers coach. Stefanski gets the job with the Cleveland Browns in 2020. Petzing goes with him, and then lo and behold, Drew becomes offensive coordinator for them Birds down Glendale, Arizona way. And he was calling plays for the first time in his career. And we started the interview with the Cardinals offensive coordinator with me asking, my man, good seeing you, and what was it like calling plays for the first time in your life?
Good. I certainly learned a lot on the job. Had a lot of people around me to lean on, and was really excited about kind of the progress we made, but still feel like we got a long way to go, and I have a long way to go as a play caller to really be where I want to be.
Drew Petzing from the Indianapolis Scouting Combine, and eventually you got to work with Kyler Murray. When you guys were back there for the joint practices, we saw him going through whatever rehabilitation or getting himself ready for the season. But when you had a chance to work with Kyler, he can be so dynamic. What was that like? Yeah,
I think you just hit on it. The dynamic ability shows up right away. Just dealing with him throughout the offseason as he's going through his rehab, learning the offense, and really just enjoyed being around him, getting to work with him. Was really pleased with kind of the way that he embraced the role as it was early in the season. And then when he hit the field, I think you saw what he's capable of and more capable of when he's out there. So really encouraged by that, and certainly needed to continue, but he was great to work with.
How about the quarterback situation in the NFL last year period? I mean, you're running through quarterbacks, Josh Dobbs being one of them. He eventually comes to Minnesota, steals the show in Atlanta, but then after that it's Mullins, Cousins with the Achilles. We talked to Kevin Stefanski earlier. I mean, he goes through 6 of them. It as a play caller and or an offensive coordinator, when you're having to roll through things like that, how difficult does it make the job?
I think it's something you always have to prepare for. I think the nature of the NFL business, injuries unfortunately are a big part of the game. So knowing that the next guy in has to be prepared, has to be coached, has to be ready to go perform at a high level, I think is a part of it. And a lot of people ask the question for us because it was a known transition essentially that we went through. Are you putting in a different offense? Are you doing anything different? Right. And I think that's a little bit of a false narrative. Like, the offense is the offense, the language and how you do it, but what you call, what you emphasize, where you go changes by the person that has the ball in their hand, as it should. It's no different than any other sport. So I think that's a big thing that you saw a lot of teams do, and it's some teams do it better than others, some teams do it worse, but that's something that I think every team needs to be ready for by nature of the sport.
Peter, it's Drew Petzing from the Combine.
Now, Drew, we haven't been here for a little while and talking to some folks. The draft this year, I mean, not obviously, but there are a number of quarterbacks out there, right, that maybe in other years all would have been first rounders. You hear about a lot of offensive tackles, wide receivers, and this is the 7-on-7 stuff trickling up because there seems to be just a slew of good wide receivers, but really a good draft overall. You guys, I'm not asking you to give away any company secrets, but you guys are in a good spot to add a lot of talent. What excites you about this year's draft and this group of guys that maybe if you have seen any of them yet?
Yeah, and we're starting to dive into that now as we got through self-scout and free agency and all the things that go into that. And, I think the nice thing in Arizona is I have a ton of faith in Monty. He does an amazing job of managing all that, making sure we're prepared, making sure he's prepared. Was really impressed just in the year that we had, over the last 12 months working with him. You hit on, I think the positions that get talked about most are those high, they're hard to find. There's not a lot of them out there, and they have a big impact on the game. So certainly they get a lot of publicity. But, we're going to look to add value at every position throughout the draft. I think from our time in Minnesota, a guy named Adam Thielen was not drafted, not signed as a tryout guy. So I think you see guys like that show up and show out and play at a high level. So it's really a combination of it. Yes, we are in a position to get a great player early in the draft, but we need to make sure that we're doing the right things throughout the draft to put ourselves in position down the road.
Well, you're 6 years in Minnesota. You did myriad things offensively as one of the offensive coaches, starting with Norv Turner right up until you joined Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. Those years in Minnesota, how did they influence the offensive coordinator you are now?
I mean, I don't even think I could put that into words. Just the people I was around, the football I was a part of, just the different styles, the different systems. I think we had, 4 different play callers in 6 years, multiple of whom have been head coaches. I think 4 of them, right? Norv, Pat Shurmur, Gary Kubiak, Kevin Stefanski, so to work with those guys, to learn from those guys, and just try to be a sponge to everything that they brought to the table is just huge, and certainly is a huge part of who I am and who I want to be moving forward.
Now, being here at the Combine and not being elite, all 22 mind, I don't watch a lot of college football, but there are opinions that I'll either get on or off the microphone that I just don't forget because I respect the people. And now on a Wednesday, having been here for a day and a half, is we've heard about the quarterbacks, for 6 months, whether it's Caleb Williams, Drake May, the LSU kid, so on and so on and so on. Okay, looks to be a deep quarterbacks draft. Offensive tackles. It seems like it's rich and deep with tackles. Do you see it that way?
Certainly, and I think as we talked about, that's a position that's going to get talked about because it's a premium, because they're so hard to find. And I think there are a number of guys in this draft that do it at a really high level. Similar to the guy that we took at 6 overall last year in Paris, who we were really pleased with the way that he performed this year in the National Football League. It's a spot that's really hard to play and really hard to find someone who's twice my size, 3 times as athletic as me, and also probably smarter than me to go out and do it at a high level. So those guys don't come around every day.
Yeah, but can he craft a 5-horse trifecta box as well as some of us? Anyway.
But no, I think you hit it on. I think it is. I think it's a class that has a lot of ability of guys that are going to come in and have a big impact on some teams in critical situations and have to be asked to play right away.
Well, Drew Petzing, offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals, with the Minnesota Vikings for more than half a decade. First year was last year as offensive coordinator for the Cardinals. And some of the names that you were just rattled off, Norv, Pat Shurmur, Gary Kubiak, Kevin Stefanski. When you're in a role like you're in now, heading into your second year, so maybe it's even still in play, do you ever tap on any of those minds if you have a question?
Oh, absolutely. Those are guys that I talk to probably almost weekly throughout the season, in the off season. First and foremost, just because we got close as people, so it's more of a personal relationship. But certainly when I get to a point during the week, or I see something on tape, or there's something I'm not 100% sure on, or I don't know how to, maybe I don't have the perfect answer yet, those are guys that I lean on heavily. Certainly Kevin, having been with him 6 years in Minnesota, 3 years in Cleveland, running an offense that a lot, from a language perspective is very similar. He's a guy that I go to heavily and owe so much of my career to him, and that's going to continue. I mean, that's someone that I lean on day in and day out to make sure that I'm getting to go the direction I need to.
Well, off that was Stefanski, and I'm glad you put it that way. What week 9, your Cardinals lose to Cleveland at Cleveland. What'd you say to him after the game?
Nothing. It didn't need to be said. I mean, they kicked the crap out of us in every way, shape, and form. So certainly a frustrating game when you go back and see so many people and you put out that type of performance. But it was a great learning experience. I think it was more so what I'm going to ask him after the season about, hey, what did you see? What can we do differently? Where do we go wrong? Type of thing. Because it wasn't the outcome we wanted, but certainly great. It's like playing your brother. It's one of those things you never want to lose your brother in any circumstances, in any game, in any way, shape, or form. But he's one up on me right now. So hopefully at some point we can get that one back.
But how great is it having that? I mean, forget that he's 2-time coach of the year. He's the most, one of the, certainly maybe the most authentic, real, genuine article type person I've met in all my years calling games in the NFL. Because not everybody's going to be like that. Not everybody's going to go out of their way to want to help you, where Kevin always has been like that.
Yeah, and that was true from the moment I walked in the building in Minnesota as a coaching assistant, in terms of his putting in time and effort to teach me and help me develop and help me grow as a coach, and moving me from the tight end room to the quarterback room and sitting down and having conversations, since he went through a similar path. I think that's a big part of who he is, what he preaches, and what he's about. And I think you see it in everybody that's worked with him. They kind of take that and try to make it their own.
All right, we got DP. Time for 2 more.
Yeah. Quick question is, you made the transition from position assistant to position coach, now the coordinator and play caller. What's more difficult and what's more rewarding, game planning or calling the game itself?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. Calling it is much more stressful. Your adrenaline's up. You certainly, the nerves, the pressure, the anxiety, and honestly, that to me, that's what makes it fun. Those are the parts of play calling that I enjoy. But I would say that the game plan is probably a much bigger process. I mean, the play calling takes place over, 3 hours on a Sunday. It's what everyone sees and evaluates, but really what you're calling is what you prep for 6 days. And honestly, a lot more that goes into that from a work perspective on the back end, and you rely on so many people to put that together. We have 10 guys on our offensive staff that are working day in and day out to put that plan together that I'm going to lean on heavily. I'm asking questions of the head coach, the defensive coordinator that we have, Nick Rallis, who I was with in Minnesota. Yeah. Jonathan Gannon, obviously, is the head coach who I was with in Minnesota. And, I think it's just so much goes into that process, and there's so much pressure. It's why you get up early, you stay late, because you feel like it could always be better. It can always be a little bit different. No stone unturned mentality. So I think if I had to compare the two, that's probably the one that you grind on more, because once that's complete, I always say, hey, I could hand the sheet to anybody, and if they got a decent mind for football, they should be able to call it. But I think how you put it together really does make a difference.
Well, I mean, with your team last year, you didn't win as many games as you hoped to win, and it's a work in progress. Completely new staff, and you didn't even have your starting quarterback to begin the year. So with that said, I know you're not into moral victories, but that win at Philadelphia in the penultimate, that was a badass win for you guys, man.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Certainly, going up against a good team on the road in a tough environment, was really happy with the way the players came out and responded and the effort they put into it. I mean, you could see it on their faces throughout the game, and even as we took the lead there at the end, how much it meant to them. And I think that's one of the reasons you do it. You coach, you take so much enjoyment on watching other people have success and knowing what they put into it physically and mentally every day. So certainly something to build on. But as you said, we're not into moral victories, and at the end of the day, we want to win every game we play. Came up short more times than we wanted to, but encouraged about the progress and kind of the direction we're going.
Well, with the 4th overall pick in the draft, double-edged sword, it's like you kind of want to go, yeah, we have the 4th pick. Yeah, we picked 4th. But having the 4th in a rebuilding situation or retooling, whatever you want to call it, it's fantastic. And you're the head coach, Jonathan Gannon, has a defensive bent to him, okay? And you're the offensive coordinator, so how do you, nudge him along in case you want an offensive guy there?
Honestly, it's something that I never had to worry about with him. I think he's always been so focused on the big picture as a head coach of just keeping the mentality of whatever's going to put us in the best position to win football games long term. I think that's what makes him unique, and it's what kind of helps the players relate to him. I think at the end of the day, it's about the team, and it's a message that he does such a good job of preaching, and certainly us as assistant coaches, we try to echo that, and I think it's part of the reason we feel good about the direction we're going and why it's one of those conversations I almost never have to have.
And I think I texted you about this during the year. I just thought it was so cool watching you guys from afar, and of course pulling for you because of you, Robert Rodriguez, Rallis, Gannon, and so on, man. It's the way you ran the ball. I mean, it's a passing league, and I know you're going through quarterbacks waiting for Kyler. Into the equation, you were second in the NFL in yards per attempt. I believe second. And that, so running, why is it so important to you? Because it just always kind of has been important to Norv, Shermer, Stefanski. I would imagine that probably influenced it.
It did and it didn't. Honestly, it's something that it not caught me by surprise, because I think you realize it as you're going through the game. You're having success doing it, so you're going to keep doing it. But was encouraged by the way when people knew we were good at it, that we were still able to succeed. But it wouldn't matter to me if we were first in the NFL in passing and 32nd in rushing, or flip that right around. I think at the end of the day, kind of the team above all else is if we can score one more point than the other team, we're doing things right. And I think that has to be our only focus as we go through, last year into this year and moving forward. And I think if you can get people to buy into that and get players to buy into that across the board, you have a chance to be the best team.
DP Drew Petzing, offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals. We hooked the Cardinals this year. We hooked the Green Bay Packers twice, of course. Their analyst on the radio, Larry McCarren, who works with the Dagger. He's next as Combine coverage continues.
KFAN, The Fan.
Larry McCarren analyzes football for the Green Bay Packers radio network. Yes, he works, and there is your dagger. He has nine fingers and a bunch of big opinions. So we started with Larry by saying, hey, what brings you to Indy?
They got this thing, it's really crazy, and they call it the Combine. It's not a farm tool. It's like a mass gathering of all kinds of football folks, and then they bring in younger football folks that they poke and prod and evaluate, and then they come out of there with conclusions that they base drafts on, and millions of dollars actually are at stake. You wouldn't believe this stuff, but millions of dollars are at stake, And it just kind of happens every year here in Indianapolis.
And clearly, old friend Larry McCarren is poking and prodding the Vikings announcer, too, with that question, because I understand all that, but not every analyst or not every play-by-play guy comes, but you choose to come every single year. So let me rephrase it, because you're an elite football mind. Larry McCarren, analyst for the Green Bay Packers radio network. He works to the right of the dagger. When you come to Indianapolis, what are you looking for?
Well, to be honest, Paul, we're looking to be here when our higher-ups, much higher than me, our GM or coach when he used to come, but we are here to see what they have to say about a variety of topics. It's a media availability. They've been kind enough over the years to sit down and do a one-on-one, but really to gather in the information for our readers, listeners, viewers, what have you, to gather that information and then to put it out. Because as you know, with Viking fans, Packer fans are the same way, and it's kind of an insatiable appetite, be it the regular season, preseason, or the offseason.
With Wayne Larrivee, the play-by-play voice, the Dagger, what's it like working with Wayne?
Oh, yeah, like it's, we've been together for like 25 years, and it's hard to believe that he hasn't totally been, just totally frustrated with my style, which is kind of totally different than his style. But like, you're in the same business. I couldn't do what you guys do. I think Wayne does it very well, accurate, thorough, and he's got that voice. I mean, he's got juice like nobody's business. I have none of the above, but somehow the relationship has worked out.
Larry McCarren, analyst for the Packers radio network. Matt LaFleur, in his first year without Aaron Rodgers, an opportunity, so to speak, to spread his wings and not have to deal with, certain plays or a lot of plays changed at any point of the game. I'm not saying Jordan Love doesn't change games, and Jordan definitely changed plays, definitely got himself good as the season went on. But what'd you learn about Matt last season?
To be honest, I thought Matt had his best season as a head coach. It was a season where you needed a head coach to really lead the football team. They had like a 4-game losing streak. When you lose, to me, in the NFL, you lose 3 in a row, those guys who might be sitting on the fence, they might go to the wrong side. I mean, that's kind of a benchmark for me. Maybe wrong, but I believe that's, you lose 3 in a row, things get tough, and you gotta work at keeping that locker room together, keeping the belief together. And the Packers had a 4-game losing streak. The first half of the season really was not good in a lot of respects, and he kept that group together. In the meantime, he's bringing along a young quarterback, and all the things, the ups and downs and in-betweens of a football season that everybody goes through, I thought he handled it beautifully. And it comes time of dealing with personalities, and sometimes personalities, as you well know, can be kind of difficult, and especially when things aren't going the team's way, their way. And he did that, and I just thought he had his best year as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, and this was a season they really needed that from their head coach.
Right. Well, and Jordan Love, the quarterback, I mean, when we saw him at Lambeau Field and left, it's the game Cousins popped his Achilles, and but nevertheless, Brian Flores' defense, with all due respect, absolutely flummoxed that young man for the totality of the game. So that's all we really knew off what we had seen live. Well, then he comes to U.S. Bank Stadium and he's channeling his inner Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. Was a completely different guy. Well, like, what flipped and when did it flip with him?
Well, those who know more than I do, like Matt LaFleur, said he started seeing it in the Pittsburgh Steelers game, and I can't tell you which week that was, but it was after the Packers played the Vikings for the first time. But he started seeing the right things then, and then once the ball started rolling in the direction Jordan wanted it to roll, he just grew exponentially on the job. And again, I only know this because I looked it up this morning getting ready for an interview, but he had a stretch, 21 touchdown passes, 1 pick over 9 games. I mean, that's amazing. And it's funny, Brian Gutekunst, our GM, has said this offseason, said it again today, but the thing about Jordan, there's more there, much more. And I asked him, I said, much more? How do you get better than 21-1? But he had a good answer for it. But there's subtle things about his game that there is room for growth. He is a 1-year starter, and I'm sure there'll be times when it's not so glowing for him, but he showed the kind of personality. He works through those times, and all quarterbacks have him. He works through those times and just stays after it. And the thing you really notice about him, personality-wise, he's so calm. He asks his teammates, what's Jordan like in the huddle? He's very calm. No matter what's going on around him. And he's just got that, I really think, and I didn't know this till I saw a whole season of him, I think he's got the mystical it. Now, I don't want to get into comparison. The Packers are coming off 2 Hall of Famers. Like, I'm not going there, but I'm just saying, can the Green Bay Packers win and win big with Jordan Love? You betcha.
Is the future with the Packers for Aaron Jones, who is under contract, by the way, is his future maybe the biggest talking point for Green Bay Packers fans, wondering what's next with him financially, or is it something else?
Now, they want him back. I know that for certain, absolutely positively. When he finally got healthy, he was a difference maker. Just a difference maker.
Tore us up late in the season.
No, and he did that to a lot of folks at the end. I mean, he had like 5 straight 100-yard games. I mean, he's a guy that tilts the field in your favor. He's one of those special talents, and they definitely want him back. Now, the rest of it, like how they're going to work it out cap-wise and contract-wise, I don't know, beyond my purview, but Aaron Jones will be a Green Bay Packer, and that's a credit to both him and his attitude. He is a great guy to have in your locker room. Even he was hurt a bunch last year. Even while he was hurt, he somehow, some way maintained a leadership element, and a large one. And he was a positive even while he was on the sideline.
A couple more for Larry McCarren, analyst for the Green Bay Packers radio network. The divisional round playoff game against San Francisco. Holy cow, you guys played them right to the wire before that Greenlaw interception. What's memorable about that game, and how do you think Jordan played in that game?
Well, Jordan, that wasn't his best game, certainly. Made a poor decision at the end. Simple as that. I thought going into it, the Packers could play with anybody and beat anybody. I mean, they were in that magic area where, despite what the regular season was like, but at the end of the regular season and into the playoffs, they were playing their best football. Now, it's hard to bottle that. I mean, every coach is like, we want to be playing our best at the end. Well, how do you wait for that? I mean, what do you do? It's one of those things, and I saw it when the Packers won the Super Bowl after the 2010 season. I think at one point they were 8-6, lost 3 of their last 4, and all of a sudden the switch went on, and they started playing really well. And I remember Mike McCarthy saying, who was the coach then, Mike McCarthy, he was talking about they had just lost to the Patriots on a Sunday night game. He's talking about this, and he finishes his comments, and it was basically kind of a bitch session. You're just getting it off his chest. Yeah. And when he finished, he goes, "We got to get to the Super Bowl." And I'm thinking, you got to win a game. I mean, and by golly, they did, because that whatever it is, that mystical it took place within that locker room, on that team, on the field, and away they went, and they just kept getting better and better. And the Packers were in one of those situations this year, and they could have competed with anybody at the end, but they didn't have their best game. Jordan didn't have his best game in the playoffs, and it cost them. But that's the NFL. I mean, you get that one shot, and on that afternoon, you don't have to be better for 18 games, 17 games. You don't have to be better for that. You got to be better that one afternoon.
Well, Larry, what do you think the Packers fancy via the draft or maybe free agency? What spots are you guys looking to fill?
I get the sense that they want things to get settled down in the secondary. Like, in particular, they had injuries at corner this year. I think they'd like some depth there. But at the safety spot, I think that is pretty much up in the air and kind of unsettled. They have Darnell Savage and Jonathan Owens and Rudy Ford, and I think all those guys are free agents, and what's going to happen there, I don't have a clue, to be quite honest, but I think they want to get the back end straightened out defensively because they're looking for more consistency on that side of the ball.
Well, the interview has come to a conclusion, which means from a radio standpoint, you know what that means, right?
The dagger?
And there is your radio dagger. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Paul.
Larry McCarren, terrific. Likewise for Wayne Larrivee, the Vox for the Green Bay Packers. When we return, Ryan Grigson, the Senior Vice President of Player Personnel for our Minnesota Vikings. He joins us live from the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. When we return,